Welcome to Pearl Treasure Designs, Recreation, Inspiration, Collaboration, DIY number 1. We are making a springtime pumpkin. And here we're going to get started by loading the knitting machine front and back with the yarn on our knitting machine. And I'm showing this to you in real time because it is important to make sure that when you are using your knitting machine to load the first row properly. And if there's any missed stitches, go ahead and correct that now, or otherwise you will have missed stitches all the way up one side of your pumpkin. And then we're going to load this, and I am going to put this in fast forward, otherwise it would take us about 25 minutes to get this done. And you'll see the yarn is on a tensioner, and it took probably 100 or 120 rows to complete the size of the pumpkin that I was making. All right, so we'll finish this in about 2 minutes, and then you'll get to go on and we will review this at the very end to see the finished product. But here we are, just making sure that we're getting all of those stitches on correctly. This particular machine does not have suction cups on the leg, so you'll see that it migrates while I was using it, because this is the smaller size knitting machine. The large one, I believe, comes in pink. And here you'll see me taking off the rim and taking each loop and taking my darning needle and going through it so it doesn't come apart. Okay. And once I have this done, I'm going to go ahead and turn it right side in, so it's double thickness, and we're going to stitch that together and pull it tight so one end is almost closed up. You have about 1 finger width of space in the center when I'm finished with this. So you'll see me pulling that tight, no loose threads, and then I may even cut any loops that I had to pull out to make it tight so it looks like a hat. Stuffing it with PolyFill. I didn't want to fill it too tight, I wanted a little bouncy. And then you'll see me taking the darning needle in through the center and up and around the outside, okay? And pulling it tight to make each of the outlines for the pumpkin itself. And you will see the resource for this idea also in my design in the descriptions page. So there's one part of the finished pumpkin, and I'm darning in the yarn itself. And now we're getting ready for the springtime decorations. I chose a cinnamon stick for the stem and spring flowers and lilies. DIY number 2. We are going to make a calendar. This will be a perpetual calendar, and I chose to do 3 months to get us up to date, and each month I will do another heading for this perpetual calendar. And so this will be the numbers for each of the squares. I chose the squares to be about 1 1/3 inches or 1 3/16 inches with our calendar letters. And the first design is January. I took a tag and reproduced it to be a heading for the month. And then of course February is hearts and love and everything nice. And March I decided to do spring flowers, and a lot of these you'll find with Jolee and other designs for scrapbooking. I did use tape from scrapbooking, permanent tape. And we're just finishing up these designs and putting in some edging here. Now this is paper that I wet and pulled apart for the feathered look. And you'll see the finished designs in just a minute. Adding on the month on each one of these. And at the end you'll see me putting on magnets so that it will adhere to the metal backing that I have for the calendar. each piece, because it is perpetual, you will be able to move each one of the days and numbers on the calendar. And I did manage to find the right size magnet for those, so, and it works great. So continuing that, the magnets, that probably took the most time, but it's worth it. It's a cute, great little project. Great gift ideas for friends, family. I use one in my camper, you know, things like that. They're just fun to have around. The products I did get at the dollar store for the frame and the metal top, I did glue them together with E6000 glue. Here I am chalking the outside of each of the days of the month, just to make it highlight a little more, bring in a little more color. And you can change these out if you want one whole color. I chose to make, not just monochromatic. I wanted to have a blend of color from green to blue to light purple, because it is springtime. And you'll see that I did the days of the week. Now you'll see that at the end, and here are our hosts for this collaboration: 6 Kids and a Glue Gun, Crafty Art Shack, and O.K.at Home DIY. And you'll find more of them in our descriptions with links to their videos, so be sure to watch their videos. They are very talented, and I'm so excited. DIY number 3. We are making our, let me see, let's go on here. I am crocheting here a dishcloth. And what I'm doing here now is what's called the foundation stitch. I did a double crochet foundation stitch, and I did 21 stitches across, because when you turn your project, it will end up with 20 stitches. Okay, so the foundation stitch will continue. To make that foundation, that way you don't have to do a chain and then do single crochet and it will curl. This tends not to curl when you do the foundation stitch correctly. It takes a little more time, but it's worth it in the end because the product will lay flat. So I am using a 10.5 needle. I did want this project to be a little more loose, so when it is laundered, it will tighten up. And that way you don't start with a tight product and then have it get super tight after it has come through the wash. Because you do want some of that fibers to breathe, to increase the longevity of the fiber and the cloth itself. So we're getting about to be the end of that first foundation row, and we will chain 3 and turn the project for row number 1. Again, this is a double crochet foundation stitch. I chose this material because it reminds me of spring. So here we're going around, chain 3, and now we're starting just the double crochet. I've sped it up because it is 12 rows of double crochet, chain 3, double crochet, chain 3. And then we will get to the border once we see that this finished 12 rows is at its completion. And then I'll show you what that looks like. So counting your rows, counting your stitches is really important to make sure that it's not, you're not 1 stitch off. There's nothing worse than having a dishcloth that looks like a triangle. So be sure to count your stitches and make sure your tension is pretty much the same all the way through the project. Again, double crochet for 20 stitches all the way across, chain 3, turn, and complete 20 more double crochet stitches. I did go through both base loops, not the front or the back. I did both to increase the strength of the dishcloth. And you get to see that it is almost to that 12th row. And now we're getting ready to do the edging. So here I've slowed down this video here so that you can see in real time that it's single crochet around the edging. So I'm going through both front and back loop, single crochet, and for a total of 20 single crochet on each row, or each side, please forgive me. And once you get to the corner, you're going to crochet 3 in each corner, okay? And that just creates that curve without bunching the corners or making them curl, because there wasn't enough stitches to hold it flat. Okay, so we're about to the end of this. There's 3 or 4 stitches left, and I will work this in with a darning needle so that you can hide that and secure it down so it doesn't come loose, especially with laundering and using it with dishwashing. Tie it off with a slip stitch as well. So I guess I have one more row to go. So let's do that. I love the spring colors. They pop. You know, if you're one that wants to have white, that's great. This is a cotton yarn, so it will shrink a bit when you do wash it and dry it. Make sure after you dry it, you let it rest, that it doesn't come right out of your dryer into your sink, because it will cause the fibers to break. So that's something that we should be aware of when using cotton yarn products. So here's the final stitch. We're going to do a slip stitch after we finish that corner. And we take the slip stitch into the top of the first stitch and pull it through both loops to make sure that we secure it and it creates somewhat of a knot. There we go. Pull it through, tie it off, and then we'll darn it into the product. I typically will darn for a few stitches and then go back around to create a knot around another stitch. That way it's less likely to come undone or fray. And when I do these projects, I love to listen to soaking music. I love to listen to praise and worship. It just keeps me focused. So you do what you have to do to get your work done. It's a great time to just reflect and, think about life. So here I am taking those few stitches and making sure I don't split the yarn, and then I'll work it back onto itself by going over the loop, over the front loop, going into the back loop and pulling it back through, and then cutting and tying it off. Final reveal. Our summertime pumpkin or spring pumpkin. Our perpetual calendar with January, February, and March. And then our springtime dishcloth. Thanks for watching. Be sure to watch all the other videos of these talented ladies.